Concord Chamber Music Society, I'm Anthony Princiati with this supplement to a recent preview for an upcoming concert on January 29th that will include Beethoven's extraordinary Sonata No. 9 for violin and piano, the so-called Kreutzer Sonata. As with so many of Beethoven's works, the length, scope, and virtuosity of this piece created a musical sea change. After the Kreutzer, the violin and piano sonata as a genre would never be the same. And the story behind its composition and subsequent history, which includes tales of drunkenness, brawling, forbidden lust, censorship, and perfume, is equally remarkable. This sonata was originally written for George Bridgetower, a violin virtuoso of Afro-European descent who met Beethoven while visiting Vienna. Bridgetower was the son of a West Indian servant of Haydn's royal patron, Prince Esterhazy. His mother was from Germany. The family moved to London when he was very young, and by the time he was 10, he was giving concerts in the city's most prestigious venues. International tours soon followed, including a trip to Paris in 1789 to perform in a concert at which Thomas Jefferson and his family were present. By the time he met Beethoven in 1803, his reputation as a performer was well established. The two musicians hit it off immediately, bound together by a shared enthusiasm for music and for drink. They soon began a collaboration that would result in the composition of the Ninth Violin Sonata, which Beethoven teasingly dedicated to Bridgetower with the inscription, "Sonata, written for a lunatic." It was premiered in Vienna in late May of 1803 with Beethoven at the piano and Bridgetower reading large segments of the new work over his shoulder. After the concert, the duo repaired to a local tavern where, as was often the case with Beethoven, the excitement and goodwill generated by a successful performance devolved, with the assistance of copious amounts of alcohol, of course, into an all-out fight when Bridgetower made a comment about a woman Beethoven fancied that the composer took amiss. Soon after, Bridgetower returned to London, where he would enjoy a distinguished career as a performer and teacher. Meanwhile, Beethoven was in the market to find a new dedicatee for his sonata. He chose Rodolphe Kreutzer, one of the greatest violinists of the time, whose 42 etudes and caprices would become staples in the training repertoire for violinists, the second etude in the volume famously being exploited many years later by the comedian Jack Benny to depict the quintessence of earnest yet painfully futile artistic effort. While Beethoven likely thought of Kreutzer partly because the violinist's fame could serve to popularize the sonata, the violinist hated the piece. Looking it over, he asserted that it was impossible to understand. He then sagaciously observed that since it had already been performed once, there was no need for it to be performed again. Kreutzer never played the sonata. Almost 90 years later, the work would be used as a plot device in Tolstoy's novella The Kreutzer Sonata, an oddly salacious paean to abstinence and the renunciation of worldly pleasures, in which a violinist arouses the desires of a bored housewife as they play Beethoven's sonata together, only to be discovered by her husband with predictably grim results. The book garnered international attention from Russia to the United States, primarily as a result of governmental efforts to ban it. In 1901, the novella inspired a painting with the same title by the French artist René Pinet that depicts a dashing-looking violinist interrupting a private reading of the sonata to indulge in a passionate embrace with his overwhelmed female collaborator, an image that was used to advertise a perfume called Taboo well into the 20th century, accompanied by the retrospectively mirth-inducing slogan, "Taboo, the forbidden fragrance." The perfume was created by the famed French perfumer Jean Carl, who said that his goal was to fashion a scent that, quote, "a lady of ill fame would wear." Late in life, Carl would, ironically, be compared with Beethoven, as constant close exposure to perfume-making chemicals robbed him of his sense of smell. Yet he also understood the creative process of his profession so well that he was able to create new perfumes. based on his recollection of individual scents and his conceptions, informed by years of experience, of the fragrance they'd create when combined. Yet, as apt as this biographical analogy may be, it's safe to assume that the association of his Ninth Violin Sonata with the mass marketing of cheap perfume would have come as a surprise to Beethoven, which I suppose makes the moral of the story something composers have long understood. The works they labor over are essentially their creative offspring, and they, like parents with their children, eventually have to release them into the world, usually doing so with high hopes and fingers crossed. For the Concord Chamber Music Society, I'm Anthony Princiotti.